Hey, originals, welcome back to the Big Up YuSelf Show. Oh my goodness, this is a space for healthy self-esteem, for self-empowerment, and for self-celebration. You get to focus on you over here, no one else but you, your goals, your dreams, your aspirations. You get to give yourself credit for surviving and for recognizing your wins. You get to embrace your originality, so you're just like you and nobody else. You get to share your gifts and talents and promote your projects and your business. Welcome. And if you have not subscribed to the channel yet, I invite you to subscribe. And when you do, turn on that notification bell so that you're notified when we upload another video or go live. And while you're at it, please like the video and leave a juicy comment. Your likes and your comments, they do matter and they help us out a lot. Welcome, welcome, welcome. All right. So today I have a very special guest. I am so excited to bring her on. Oh, I am so excited. I can't let me bring her on. Let me add her to the stream while I read you her bio. Hi, Shannon.
Hello, hello.
Oh
I'm
my
so
goodness.
excited.
Let me try this. I think, yes, this is better. Now, Shannon is an experienced regional sales manager. She is a courage based coach like no other. She is an author, speaker, and founder. She is the founder of Courage in the City LLC. And Courage in the City is a company that helps women go from where they are to where they want to be. And let me tell you, Shannon is partially the reason I am sitting on this platform today. It was her encouragement that brought me out of my shell and to allow myself to be seen and to share my gifts with the world. So, Shannon has held courage based events for women in several cities on the continent of Africa and North America. Shannon Muruli, welcome to the Big Up YuSelf Show.
I am so excited to be here with some. The Big Up Yourself show is right in alignment with what I believe, what I stand for. And it just takes so much courage to get through the challenges of life. And once you get on the other side of that, being able to look back and see the courageous actions you've taken and being able to big up yourself for what you've accomplished. I think this is just an amazing show, and I'm ready to dive into the conversation.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. I am absolutely honored that you chose to visit my humble little show.
Well,
Okay,
Now this is a conversation, right?
okay, yes, yes,
Okay. So
yes.
what was I about to do? What was I about?
It's not a little show. It's such a habit of saying little. It's such a habit. Okay. Yes, my show is big. I'm claiming it is
Yes,
big.
yes.
That's how we speak, right?
That's
Courage
how we
to speak like that.
talk.
So, okay. So, in getting started, one of the I am always intrigued by the relationship that people have with their names, right? And I feel like your name is such a big part of your identity. And I'm always curious if people are using their names in their story, if they like embody their name. And I'm curious about where their name came from, who named them, what is the definition of their name, and well, what does it mean and does it suit them? So tell me about your name. What's the story
Well,
behind
it's so interesting that this is the first question because for several years, a part of my full name is Shannon Martina Rice Muruli. Rice is my maiden name. So I'm gonna talk about how I got my middle name. Okay.
Uh-huh.
And so my mom, I'm originally from Florida, And my mom went to college in Florida at Bethune-Cookman College, which is an historically Black college university.
Mm-hmm.
And her roommate, her name was Martina. Now, this is the thing. When I used to ask my mom about where the name Martina came from, she would always tell me that she had a roommate named Martina. But
Uh-huh.
the thing is, Winsome, there was no evidence of Martina. Okay, she
Right.
wasn't. There were no pictures. Where is Martina? Like, where is
Does
mom?
she really exist?
Did she really exist? And so, because Martina is just not a typical African American name,
True.
right? And so I was like, Mom, I'm not buying what you putting down. But I used to go along with it because, that was her story, and I let her hold on to that. But then several years ago, I was flying. I live in Dallas, Texas, and I was flying back home to Jacksonville, Florida. And I had called my mom to let her know that I arrived and I was at the airport. And she said, "Okay, I'm on the way, and Martina is going to come with me."
Martina surfaced?
just out the blue.
Surfaced!
So I'm sitting in the airport like, huh? Oh, she's real. So now I'm a little nervous because I'm like, oh my gosh, this woman is a real person. And so lo and behold, my mom shows up at the airport, and there's this cutest little woman, who is standing there next to my mom. My mom is about 5'2", and they're both the same height. And she has the most beautiful disposition, big, beautiful smile, just someone that I can tell is kind, is calm, and just not a person who causes a lot of ruckus in life. I'm kind of feeling
Uh-huh.
all this out about her just from reading her body language. And
Uh-huh.
so she and I have a conversation over lunch, and actually I could see so much of myself in Martina in terms of just her kindness, her warmth, her ability to connect with people like almost instantly. And so I it was just interesting to learn that my mom, even though I was in her belly, and she was a very young woman, like 20 years old, she was able to think enough of her roommate back in 1979.
Wow.
And just to see her and just think, oh my gosh, so much of you I
Oh
embody.
my goodness.
Yeah,
That is something else.
something else. And it's just a testament that I believe mothers really have this intuition. They kind of know a little bit about how their child is going to be before they're even birthed. So I just thought that I wanted to share that because it really does. Names really do take on a meaning.
They do.
They
They
do.
do. So then how did you come to have Shannon as the name that you use?
Now that part, my mom just wanted to be different. she just, well, she liked the fact that it was a unisex name. It can go for a female or a male. So
Uh-huh.
you know she did experience a little bit of the challenges that come with being a black woman during her younger years. And so she said that having a dual name could probably give me a little bit more of an advantage in
Yes.
certain arenas,
Yes.
just by having the name Shannon.
Yes. Yes. Do you
Yeah,
feel that that works for you?
it does work.
Perfect.
Sometimes when I would show up to interviews, not only would they be surprised that I was a woman, a black woman at that,
I
because
know. Because when I first heard your name, I thought that you were Caucasian.
exactly. So it gives me a chance to show up and surprise whomever I'm speaking with all of my greatness because they were not
Yes.
anticipating that.
With all of my greatness. I love
Yes,
it. Own it,
yes,
child. Own it. So use it comfortably in your name and use it as part of your identity. That is
yes,
awesome. That
yes.
is awesome. So it's the Big Up YuSelf show, and we're celebrating ourselves and giving ourselves credit for surviving stuff, right? because
Yeah.
we survived because of some decisions that we made
Mm-hmm.
and some actions that we took, right? Yes, with the help of God, of the universe and everything, but the part we play in our own survival, we can take credit for that.
Mm-hmm.
And so our survival stories can be an inspiration to others. So I want to ask you, it's one of the questions I ask on the show. What is a trauma or a difficulty that you have overcome, and how were you able to overcome that?
Yeah, yeah. I love this part of the show because I think it humanizes us all, right? Even when I share my story that I'm about to share, it won't be identical to someone's experience, but I believe that they can see themselves, or maybe they know someone who may be experiencing what I'm about to share and be able to, you know, have a little bit more compassion as to what they may be experiencing. Health challenges. I've had some, but not anything that required me to be admitted to the hospital. If you are in a place where it's dark, it's really dark, right? I want you to know that you still can cultivate the courage to tap into, even if it's the size of a mustard seed, you can tap into your hope. Hope is still
Courage.
available for you.
Hope is still available. Courage over everything.
Yes,
Everything requires some courage.
yes, it does. That makes me think of a quote that I heard, and I keep it right here in front of me, and I'm just going to read it to you. It's a quote that I refer to quite often, by Maya Angelou, and it says, "Courage is the most important of all virtues, because without courage we can't practice any other virtue. we
Without
can't
courage,
we cannot practice any other virtue, whether that's integrity, whether that's compassion, gratitude, patience,
honesty. Mhm,
honesty, all
mhm.
of it. We cannot practice it without courage.
My
It
God.
takes courage to love someone. It takes courage
Yes.
to be loved, and to love someone,
Yeah, and what I'm learning too is that it takes courage to love yourself.
and to love yourself,
Oh my gosh, that's what I'm learning,
to
to love
empower
yourself.
yourself. Yes, to
Right. And
believe in
celebrate.
yourself.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
All of
Yeah.
that takes courage. Wow.
So
If we
I
don't talk,
remember this was May the 27th, May the 27th, 3 days before, yeah, June 1st. I was up, that was my last time up on the rooftop, because I used to go up on the rooftop, run around. And that night when I came home, I weighed myself, and it showed that I had increased my weight by like 5 pounds.
hmm,
And I was like, 5 pounds? I know I haven't eaten anything that significant. What has changed? And so the next day, I weighed myself again, had increased like another 5 pounds.
what?
And then by the third day, it was up to like between 12 and 15 pounds. And I was like, now this is strange. There wasn't pain, but I could tell in my face was beginning to swell. My eyes literally started to look like they were turning like black, they were black eyes. And I do have natural kind of dark circles under my eyes, but this was a different kind of a look. It
Wow.
literally looked like my eyes were turning black. My tummy is fairly flat, and it started to bulge out.
Wow.
Every day I was waking up, and it was out more. And then I started to feel nausea. So all these different things started to happen. So by by the 30th or the 31st of May 2021, I went to the emergency room. This was during the height of the pandemic, by the way. I was so nervous,
Oh, I can
so nervous.
imagine.
But I knew that it was the responsible thing to do. So I went to the emergency room. They checked me out. They said, there's nothing wrong, basically. They did all the blood tests. Everything seemed to be fairly okay. I said, okay, maybe I just need to rest. The symptoms persisted.
Yeah.
So I went back to the emergency room. They ran more tests, and they did ask more questions, but they ended up, sending me home again. The third day, which was a Sunday, I went back and I knew something was terribly wrong. I hadn't, um, you know, had the urge to vomit since I was about 5. And
Wow.
it was happening back to back to back.
Really?
And I just could not stop it. My head was spinning. It was just a whole thing. And by that time, I was about 17 pounds of whatever what was going on.
And they had tested you and you were negative for COVID.
Yeah, negative for COVID. This wasn't a
Yeah.
COVID situation.
Yeah.
And so that's what made it really interesting to them, because they didn't know what was happening. So they did, I guess, a different test, and something came back to state that I was my sodium levels were critically low or high. I can't remember which one it was, but this is my ignorance, y'all. I said, well, can't you just give me a cup of hot salt water?
Well, it seemed logical.
I just like, what are you
Oh,
doing? I had
goodness.
never, I had never heard of anybody being admitted to the hospital for critically low. I'm assuming was low, critically
Yeah.
low sodium.
Oh, yeah.
So I just didn't know what was happening. So anyhow, they admitted me and they hooked me up to this thing to give me the sodium that I needed. So I'm thinking this is going to be a day or two. The weight kept increasing
While you're there in the hospital,
while I'm there in the hospital. And so then they became, okay, let's pay attention to this, because this could be linked to why your sodium is low. So they ran more tests, they now started looking at my kidneys, because somehow or another, because I was gaining this weight, which was fluid, they said, okay, let's pay attention to the kidney. Lo and behold, they did a biopsy. And now I'm fine. I could walk around. I could do all the things. Nothing is really like keeping me tethered. That's my word, y'all.
tethered, yes.
Keeping me tethered to the bed yet. So they said, okay, this was a Thursday. They said, we're going to have to do a biopsy on your kidney, because we think something is definitely going on with that.
Oh, that must have been scary.
Well, this is the thing. I was very confident that there was
Mm.
nothing going on with my kidneys, because I knew my numbers, I knew my health. I never had anything wrong with my kidneys. So I was like,
Mhm.
oh, it can't be no kidneys. I don't know what it is, but it's not that.
Mhm.
So they did the biopsy, and that was a Thursday. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I didn't get the results back to Monday or Tuesday of the next week. By that time, Winsome, about 50 pounds. I mean, I keep saying pounds, but 50, I don't know if it's pounds or gallons or what it is, but all this fluid
My
weighing
goodness.
about 50 pounds was in my body. And it just kept coming. It kept coming. So they came back with the results, and sure enough, it was something going on with my kidneys. It was called minimal change disease, a very rare condition that typically happens in children. And they were just thrown back as to why I
Never heard of that.
yeah,
Minimal
it's
change
a
disease.
minimal change disease. It's a rare kidney disease
Huh.
or condition. Well, what they really told me, it was an injury, and I was like, so how did
How do
my
you injure your kidneys? Yeah.
exactly, how did I injure my kidneys? And so they had no time to explain none of that to me. They was like, ma'am, just know that they're injured and we have to jump on this really quickly. So that ended up turning into a 30-day hospital stay from June 1st until June 30th. I was in the
30
hospital
days.
30 days. Now, I've been an active person since I was 19 years old. The last bit of activity that I had was running up and down stairs at this empty parking lot. So imagine being in a room. Now you ballooned. My weight before this happened was 143. By the time I was admitted during this whole process, I was up to almost 250 pounds, and 100 of that was fluid. Okay. Now, I know people may say, Shannon, that's not a lot of weight. Listen, I've never been, listen, it wasn't even like muscle weight. Just think of gallons of water.
My
It
goodness,
was
trapped in your body.
trapped in my body. It was causing the other organs to start to move around.
Yes.
I was literally tethered to the bed. I couldn't get out without I'm a tall woman. I'm 5'11". So
Uh-huh.
just imagine all this weight, this height, and I mean, my legs had gotten so huge, and they were saying things like, we have to look out for blood clots, like all these things that I had never thought that would be associated with me. Blood clots, my blood pressure, they couldn't keep it down. It was people constantly, the machine kept beeping all through the night.
Oh my
They were
goodness.
sticking me with the needles. I had needles here. I mean, needles were everywhere. They were poking me day and day. I literally think I slept 30 hours in those 30 days. I was so, listen,
Because they were constantly attending to you?
constantly in and out of the room, or there was stuff going on with other, again, this was the height of COVID. So
Mm-hmm.
3 times there
Mm-hmm.
were people who were coded near me. 3. And I'm like, is this a dream?
Oh my
What? And
goodness.
then I mean, because of the kidneys, it created like this imbalance in my body. Like my mouth was so icky. I was so cold.
My
It was
goodness.
I was just shaking all of the day long.
My
Um,
goodness.
I mean, it was so traumatic because in one day I was fine and then the next day I wasn't. There was no preparation for me to say, oh, well, this is your diagnosis.
That.
It was just like, boom, like you're thrown into this. And so I remember I cried every day, all day. I could not stop the tears. They ended up calling the psychiatric folks because they thought that this
Mm-hmm.
person is just too far gone. I would not eat the food. They thought that was another sign of me wanting to,
Wanting
like,
to check out.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
wasn't that. I was sane enough to know that this food is not going to heal my body, right? So I knew the kind of nutrition that I needed and
Yes.
what I figured would help. And eating the food that they were preparing, it wasn't it. Thank God for insurers. I really believe that helped me get through that. But I say all that to share. There was a pivotal moment that really changed the tears and turned into like, I am going to get a triumph moment through this experience. There was a doctor that came in, and he was from New Jersey. And he
Mm-hmm.
came in all New Jersey, like, yeah, just whatever, that type of talk that they talk. They have a unique way of communicating, in my opinion. And so I remember just being there in the bed and just looking at the clock. It was just me and the clock. I wanted time to stop. I just wanted it all to go away.
Oh my
He
goodness.
walked in and he comes over to me. He gets all up in my face, right? And he's like, listen, because I had a screenshot. I mean, you are a woman, a sharp woman. I know that about you. They told me. He said, but listen, this is the thing. We're going to treat you like the woman you deserve to be treated. Okay? We're going to give you the treatment. We're going to give you the bedside manner. We're going to go above and beyond to make sure we do our part. But what we cannot do is give you hope. If you give up and lose your hope, there is nothing no medicine will do that can bring you out of this. There is nothing we can do to comfort you. There's nothing we can say to you
My
if you
goodness.
lose all hope. Shot of how I looked prior to that situation, and I was showing everybody. Anybody who would look, I
Oh
would
my
say, this is who I
goodness.
am, because I didn't want this stigma of being a Black woman, someone who didn't take care of herself. Like,
Yes.
no, this is who I am. So he was like, I've seen the picture, or I've heard about the infamous picture, and I know all the things you have your degree, you have for decades. I've seen patients who, because they gave up hope, they didn't make it on the other side. So he said, if I can't give you anything else, find a way, even if it's the size of a mustard seed.
Hmm.
And at that point, I knew he was a man of faith. He said, even if it's the size of a mustard seed,
Hmm.
hold on to that, because believe it or not, that will help you get to the other side.
I
Yes.
know this is helping somebody.
Yes.
I know this is helping somebody. That's why, to me, it is so important that we share our stories.
Hmm.
My
And so
goodness.
in that moment, there was a shift, because
Yes.
I realized that it was going to take courage for me to tap into the level of hope that I needed for myself.
My goodness. Now, see, that's the reason I ask people to share their stories,
Yeah.
because their stories, oh my God, your story will inspire someone else. Your story might just be the thing that somebody else needs to come out of what they are going through.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's powerful. That is powerful. So you came to the realization right then and there that you needed courage. Courage was going to save you.
Courage. My very teaching, my very teaching was that was the whole reason why I was thrown into that.
Yes.
I needed
Yes.
the next level of courage. I don't know. I didn't think I had surface courage,
My
but
goodness.
I experienced the next level of courage. It even took courage to say, no, this is not the food that my body needs. Right? I had to stand on that. I had
Yes.
to stand on that. No,
Yes.
that's not it. And so the person who's listening to this may not have a health crisis like that, right? Maybe yours is a financial situation. Maybe it's a relationship situation. But I just want that story to remind you, whatever situation you're in, you can't give up hope.
Cannot give it away.
And it takes courage to hold on to that hope. And the hope comes from the future. Like, I imagine myself running up and down those stairs. I imagine being on, interviews like this, telling the story. One day I'm going to talk about this. I'm going to be on the other side of this. One day I am going to have my courage over comfort events where I can invite women to also share their story as I.
And you had to live. You had to live to be able to experience these things.
Yes.
So, oh my God. I'm going to have a drink. I'm gonna have it. Listen, people, this is water, but champagne is the official drink of the Big Up YuSelf show. But this
Yes.
is water in a champagne bottle with a champagne flute. And I'm gonna big up Shannon for coming through that crazy health scare and standing so strong and helping us and teaching us about courage. Cheers to you, Shannon.
Cheers. Cheers. Yes, yes.
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
And so there was a parking lot outside of the window, and the woman would come in every morning. I wanted to stay in the dark, but they wouldn't let me. So she would open up the blinds, and there was a parking lot just like the one I used to run up and down when I was able to. And
Mhm.
I remember looking to my left and saying to myself, "You are going to run up and down those stairs again." But it takes you having the courage to do what's necessary right now. You're going to have to think about your thoughts. You're crying like this, Shannon, because your thoughts are of death. Your thoughts
Mhm.
are of weakness. Your thoughts
Mhm.
of how and why did this happen to you? Would you rather it happen to
Mhm.
someone else?
Mhm. Right.
you know, and then I remembered Miles Monroe, who said, your authenticity will always be tested. And so I said to myself, Shannon, this is the kind of courage that it takes to lead the women that you're called to lead. This is going to test if you are a woman who truly embodies courage, who
You
truly embodies what it takes to be in the fire, but still have the desire and the hope and the belief that you will not stay this way.
my goodness.
But then I had to my body had to adjust to
Yes.
a lot of different things. And so I think a full year is what it took for me to get back to a place where I can run up and down those stairs
My
again at the
goodness.
parking lot. Yes.
My goodness. Talk about the traumatic
Yeah.
experience and
Yeah.
making decisions to survive. You had
Yes.
to make some serious decisions and take serious action to be able to survive that. That's
Yes.
what I'm talking about. That's the kind of things we celebrate here on the Big Up Yourself show. So I'm going to have
Oh,
me a
it's
little drink
time to
for
big up
you.
myself. I'm ready.
Yes. Big up to you, Shannon, for
Absolutely.
surviving, for being a
Yes.
survivor. By the way,
Yes.
this is water in a champagne bottle with a champagne flute. Now, Shannon, see, the first time I heard you speak, I was mesmerized. I was mesmerized by the even your voice, even your tone in your voice, the authority it comes with. I was mesmerized by the breadth of knowledge and the way you could instantly pull something from somewhere to address a particular situation. I mean, I called you a coach before I knew you were a coach, because that's the experience that I walked away from when I heard you. And and you coach in a manner such that I could use the information and apply it to my life and have success too. So
Yes.
I'm going to ask you some questions as a courage coach.
Oh my goodness. Let's do it.
As a courage coach. Now, how would you define courage? And how does courage differ from, say, fearlessness?
Mm.
Fearlessness, I feel like, is the absence of fear.
So when I think about courage, and you probably heard me say this before, I think it varies for me. It changes and evolves for me. Sometimes from week to week or day to day. But today, this is what courage means to me: is having the courage to just live out loud. Just
Yes.
to live out loud. And the reason why I say that is because I believe there are far too many of us, especially women, who live a quiet life of desperation. And what do I mean by quiet life of desperation? We see, especially with social media age that we're in, we see so many people that do have the courage to live out loud with their business, with their careers, with their relationships, with their travels, just living out loud. And unfortunately, sometimes when you haven't tapped into, no, sometimes when you believe that they're able to do that because they're fearless, right? You live this quiet desperation of waiting until you somehow inhabit this fearlessness. And I just want to dispel that, because fearlessness, and I have to give credit to my man, my mentor, who is not with us right now, but his name is Nelson Mandela, who just, he thought that anybody who believed that fearlessness was even a thing to even think of was just foolish. It's just a foolish belief. It's a foolish thought, because we are not born courageous, right? Courageous is a result of something that we do. Fearlessness, being fearless, I believe, is something that feels very attractive to people, because it somehow alludes to courage, or fear is I'm immune to fear,
Right.
or fear, I'm above fear.
Right.
Fear is no longer in the passenger seat, or maybe it's no longer driving at times. When
Hmm.
I just disagree with that, because no matter if you're just getting started or if you've been doing something for you, you will experience the emotion of fear, especially if you've never encountered or experienced something before. Going back to Nelson Mandela, there's this he had to go speak this, I think this was in 1994. He was on his way to speak in this area called Natal,
Uh-huh.
and he was going to speak in this particular area because of it was some political stuff going on, and there were two opposing tribes that were going against one another, and he was called to come and kind of calm them, right? But it wasn't in his best interest to go because of all the things that were happening. But he gets on this plane anyway, and it was a little propeller plane, really small. And so he gets on, and somehow he notices as they were, up in the air that one of the engines had gone out. So he's sitting there reading his newspaper. He looks out the window and he notices that one of them had blown out. And so he tells his bodyguard in a very calm way, "Hey, my man." Now this is me thinking about it. Hey, my man. Can you go tell the captains that one of the engines have blown? Okay, got it. Went back to reading his newspaper, right? So his name was Mike, his bodyguard. So Mike goes quickly and tells the two captains, "Hey, and they said, oh yeah, we're aware of it. We've already notified. There are ambulance on the ground. There's all the people are in place ready for us to land." So he comes back and tells Nelson, and Nelson's cool, like, "Thank you, son." Goes back to reading his newspaper. So when he lands, the people that were there waiting to pick up Nelson, they know what's going on as well. So they get in the car with Nelson and they're like, "Nelson, how are you doing?" Nelson looks over and says, "Man, I was scared as hell."
Oh my gosh, but no one would have known.
No
No,
one would have known.
did not show it.
Yeah, he did. So all that to say, courage is not the absence of fear. It's showing up and leading even when you are afraid to do so. He knew if he would have reacted, Mike probably would have went insane. It probably would have made the captains who were flying the plane uncomfortable because they have the Nelson Mandela on the plane. So he knew that his reaction would have caused more harm than good. And so he chose to be courageous enough to make it known, but also to sit with his emotions, to feel what he was feeling, and still lead and compose himself anyway. Right?
Oh my
And
God.
so I think of that often when I think of the work that I do and the places that I'm called to go and where I'm going to be called to go that I don't even know yet.
Right.
I think of Nelson like, "I got this." Yes, I feel even with doing this, Winsome, as many times as I speak and talk, I still get nervous because I want to do well. I want the people who
Yes.
are listening to get something from it.
That's
So,
something from it.
I think that this idea of, oh, I'm fearless, I'm going to show up, I'm fearless, it puts me at a disadvantage because I'm not truly allowing myself to, one, be vulnerable, and to really consider the viewers who may be listening to this message.
Exactly. Exactly. And so now what was the catalyst that caused you to actually decide I'm going to be a courage coach? At what point did that become like an aspiration?
I think that I've lived most of my life afraid of something.
Yeah.
And I think I just got to the point when I realized it was fear, because I really thought that there was something honestly just wrong with me. There is something seriously wrong with me. I knew that I had the motive, and I didn't really need anybody to pump me up and all of that, but there was something missing. And
Yeah.
I never attributed it to fear. I just attributed it with something being wrong with me. But
Mm,
once I hired a coach and I started doing the work and I started reading books, and I think what really shifted me was when I tapped into Brene Brown's work, with her work on courage and
that's the
vulnerability
one.
and all.
Okay.
Yeah. And so when I tapped into her work, I really began to understand a lot of why I did some of the things that I did, and then it made
Mhm.
me go deeper in understanding my family, my culture, the things that I was around as a kid, the stories that I adopted, the beliefs that I adopted. And so I knew that me knowing that and I identifying the why,
Yeah.
that was good, but it was going to take courage for me to become someone outside of that, right?
Mhm.
I had to create a new self-image, a new belief system, and a new way of leading myself, not being led by my fears, but being led by the courage that I needed to develop so that I could take the action I needed to take.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that relationship between courage and vulnerability is very nuanced. It's very
Yeah.
nuanced, right? And so how does one embrace vulnerability and exercise courage? How do you navigate both of them?
Well, I think that the more vulnerable you are, the more courageous you become, right?
Because it takes courage to be vulnerable,
Because it takes courage to be vulnerable.
right?
Um, Going back to Brene Brown, there's this quote that I love, and I'm going to put my own spin on it too. But in essence, she's saying that vulnerability is not about doing the right thing or the wrong thing. It's not about going left or right, winning or losing. Vulnerability is having the courage to show up, allow yourself to be seen, not knowing what the result is going to be.
Oh, that's poignant.
Yeah.
So here I have the mug. I use this mug every single day, having the courage to show up and letting ourselves be seen. That's what
Yes.
I'm working on.
Yes.
That this work that I'm doing about showing up and letting myself be seen started with listening to you. So
Mm,
your work is working. Yes,
yeah.
we thank you for that. We thank you for that. Oh my God. Now, what are some of the common challenges that people face when they're trying to be more courageous? You know, what are some of the roadblocks to exercising courage?
Well, I think some of the biggest roadblocks is,
Self esteem might be one of them.
well, I'm trying to make sure I understand the question. What are some of the biggest roadblocks?
What are some of the common challenges people face when they're trying to become more courageous?
I think first and foremost, they think that being courageous is going back to it's something that they should already have, right? They don't understand that courage comes from what you do, right?
Courage comes from.
Courage comes from what you do.
Okay.
So it's okay to feel afraid. I think many people are waiting for that fear to subside. Like, I want to not feel the fear before I do the thing. No, you're going to feel the fear, do things that are fearful is the more courage that you're going to begin to cultivate.
Right, right. And that takes me to the point of self confidence, too.
Yeah.
Because um, isn't confidence a little different than courage? And doesn't confidence come as
As a
you
result.
something, as you practice something? Yeah.
So it's interesting, like you're gonna hear me probably give the same response. Like the more vulnerable you are, the more vulnerable you will be because it takes courage to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
The same thing sort of applies to confidence. I believe something that's a little opposed to what a lot of psychology says, which is
Yeah.
the more competent you are, the more confident you'll become.
The
Right?
more competent.
Competent you are, the more confident you'll become. Now
Yeah.
there's truth to that. But when I think about me and some of the women that I coach, a lot of them are competent. They're
Right,
brilliant, actually. They
right,
know what to
right.
do, how to do it. Listen, they're brilliant people. So competence is not necessarily the thing. They know how to do it. It's having the courage to do it. It's having the courage to put the information into action. Go take action,
Okay.
right? And so my thing is, the more courageous you are, the more confident you will become, right?
Mm-hmm.
The more courageous you are at implementing what you know, what you've learned, what you've studied, what you put that into action. And then
Right,
you'll say, oh, I can do that again. I can, yes, it feels uncomfortable, but I know I'm not going to die. I know that I'm not going to like do as bad as I think because
right.
it hasn't happened.
So not taking action is one of them roadblocks.
Yes.
Yes, not taking action to do the thing that you are afraid to do.
Yeah.
Hmm. Now, there is courage and there is reckless.
Recklessness. Yes. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
How do we balance recklessness against courage?
I think it really boils down to being prepared. When you're
Being prepared.
yeah, when you're unprepared, that, in my opinion, can lead to a reckless decision because it hasn't been thought out. There's no, you haven't thought about what the consequences could be. You haven't thought about how much it's going to cost you, not just financially, but mentally, what it's going to cost your family. Like you haven't really weighed out the pros, the cons. You haven't done the research. You're just full of emotion,
Yeah.
right? You're full of passion, and that's good. It's necessary. It's needed. But what can happen is you get out there and you jump and you leap, and things are not going as well as you thought. And it could just be because you didn't have a plan. You just wanted to say, I'm going to LA, but how are you going to get there from Dallas?
Yeah.
What's the plan? You're just gonna get in the car. There's no map. You're just gonna start driving, right?
Right.
So I think it becomes reckless. It can be reckless in terms financially reckless, emotionally reckless, career wise. It can be reckless when you don't take the time to think. Okay, what is it that I really want? Right? What is it that I'm really trying to achieve? Okay, so how do I go about doing that? Because courage, in my opinion, is something that you need in the moment,
Hmm.
right? It's needed. I've probably heard this statement before. Sometimes it takes just a few seconds of courage, right? In a few seconds of courage, you can do pretty much anything.
Mhm.
But so you don't need to so you don't need to really focus on like the courage part. You need to plan, going back to what it is you need to do, and then decide, I'm going to be courageous enough to do it. But when you don't plan, you can find yourself more on the reckless side, and
Yeah.
then you're kind of spinning your wheels. Now you're back at the same job, the
Yeah.
same situation, the same types of relationships, because you just didn't take that time to
Yes.
figure out what you wanted. Again, go from where you are to where you want to be. You're trying to bridge that gap. And part
Mm.
of how you bridge the gap is preparing and knowing what it is you need to do.
Mhm.
I'm all for like, whoo, you get pumped up and you want to go for it. But there comes a time when you have to be mature. There
Mature.
comes a time when you have to take
Method-
calculated risks.
Methodical. But you can't talk today.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, and then now some people will experience fear
Hmm.
of judgment
Yeah.
as they are trying to exercise courage.
Hmm.
Yeah. What does that kind of look like for most people? Afraid of what people are going to say. Like, say, okay, a person like me stepping out, doing a show, afraid of what people are going.
Well,
Oh,
I think that's the beauty of being a human being. It's the
yeah,
beauty of it because you know what? We all do it.
yeah, yeah.
we, even though we may not do it to hurt or harm anyone, but we all have past judgment. We all have maybe, I don't know, we just had a thought about something, whether it was a
Mm,
good thought or not a good thought. But we all
mm,
have thoughts. That's just part of our makeup. So in essence, I'm saying that fear that someone may have, the fear of judgment or fear of someone saying something, that's going to happen. So
yeah.
the better thing to do is to prepare how you want to, like, how do you want to be?
How do you want to be perceived?
How do you, no, not even perceive, but how do you
Mhm.
want to be for
How you
yourself?
for yourself?
Knowing that people are going to do that. How
Mm,
do you want to be sufficient? Like, how are you going to stay sufficient in your own beliefs about yourself? Right.
mm-hmm.
So I think in knowing that, you have to be so sold on yourself.
Mm. Ah.
And
Mhm.
even if you're not sold on yourself, your reason for why you're doing what you're doing has to be greater than that fear of being judged.
So you
Right?
have to be
So
sold on yourself.
for the Big Up Show, you have a desire to impact millions
Mm-hmm.
around the world with the conversations that they hear, these courage-based, these resilience-based, these
Mm-hmm.
celebratory-based conversations, right? So that is so big and massive. That's why you're here. Even
Mm.
though you may think that those 5 people, because it's literally about 5 people that we're really concerned about, right? And
Right.
people we grew up with, family members, something like that. It's because everyone else, you don't even know what they could possibly be thinking,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, but when those 5 people become so small on the pole because your vision is so much bigger, you show up anyway, right?
That's good.
You show up
That's
anyway.
good. That is good. And so courage does impact every area of our lives,
It
right?
does. It does.
Every single area. Courage over everything.
Yes.
Everything requires some courage.
Yes, it does. That makes me think of a quote that I heard, and I keep it right here in front of me, and I'm just going to read it to you. It's a quote that I refer to quite often by Maya Angelou, and it says, "Courage is the most important of all virtues, because without courage, we can't practice any other virtue. We
Without
can't
courage,
we cannot practice any other virtue, whether that's integrity, whether that's compassion, gratitude, patience,
honesty. Mhm,
honesty, all
mhm.
of it. We cannot practice it without courage.
My
It
God.
takes courage to love someone. It takes courage to
Yes.
love, to be loved, and to love someone,
Yeah, and what I'm learning too is that it takes courage to love yourself.
and to love yourself,
Oh my gosh, that's what I'm learning
to
to love
empower
yourself.
yourself. Yes, to
Right. And
believe in
celebrate.
yourself.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
All of
Yeah.
that takes courage. Wow. If we don't talk about anything else on the show today, that was a lesson.
Yeah.
And any final thoughts for our viewers?
I do have final thoughts, especially for the women who who are where they are, but where they are is not where they want to be. Okay? I want to tell you all a quick story because some of you all are competent enough, you're capable enough, and some of y'all are well connected, but you're still not where you want to be. And this may help you understand part of the reason why. So when an elephant is born in on the continent of Africa, typically how it works is when they're babies, they are tethered to some type of tree, right? So that they won't wander off into the wild because they're just not savvy enough to know how to take care of themselves. So this goes on for a couple of years. But after several years, that baby elephant evolves into a big elephant. And when I'm talking about big, I believe that elephants grow to um, at least 11 feet in height. and 6 tons in weight. I don't even know how to even imagine what 6 tons
I
is
know.
like. But
Yeah.
that's a lot of authority. That's a lot to contend with. Like, all the animals should be like, get out the way,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
They should be a
Make
little
way.
intimidated.
Yeah. Make way.
But the thing is, what's so interesting, even though the elephant grows to that size, right? The elephant is still not aware of its size. It
Mm.
is no longer even tethered. In some cases, it's no longer even connected to the little rope that it was that was tethering it to the tree, because that's like a piece of bubble gum at that point.
Yeah.
Because
Bubble
I mean, clearly the elephant would be able to break away from that. But even in knowing that, even though it had grown and it had everything it needed to survive outside of that comfort zone of being tethered to that
gum.
tree, it stayed right there. It does not go beyond. Once it get to a certain, it'll turn right back around.
Wow.
It doesn't need the trainer to come and whip it. Nothing. It's just automatically programmed to not leave that comfort zone. I
That's
say
awesome.
that I say that to say, because it reminds me of me, who I used to be, and it
Mm-hmm.
reminds me of the women that I work with, the women that I speak to all the time. They don't realize that they're tethered to their comfort zone, because much like the elephant, they're struggling with what I would say three things. I call it the three S's. They're struggling with self-image, self-leadership, and self-belief, aka selling themselves on themselves. They're not sold. See, that elephant didn't see himself as this bigger than life creature that was just so powerful and just royalty, and when it walks everything just opens up, so it like
Yeah. Make way.
make way for me. It
Uh-huh.
still saw itself as a little baby elephant
Wow.
that needed supervision, that needed to
Permission.
permission to go
Uh-huh.
outside of
Yeah.
clearly what it could do.
Mm-hmm.
That baby elephant didn't have the leadership. They didn't understand the authority, that the agency that they had over themselves, right? And then last but not least, of course that means they didn't have the belief, because of the story, whatever that story, their head, that narrative of what maybe the trainer did tell them when they were a kid, when it was a baby elephant. Just like us, maybe you heard, I'm shy, you're shy. Maybe you heard that, you're only supposed to be seen and not heard. Maybe you heard that, oh, you talk too much, or you don't talk enough. Maybe you heard that you're too overweight, or not enough, you don't have enough weight on you.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, those stories are keeping you tethered to your comfort zone. That ability to not desire to lead yourself, but waiting for others all the time to lead you, is keeping you tethered to your comfort zone. And then that image of, I'm just small, and I'm going to operate as small. You don't see your bigness. You don't see your brightness. You don't see your brilliance. You don't see it.
You
And so
don't.
because you don't see it and
Mhm.
own it, other people will capitalize off of that.
Yes.
Most people, even if they don't know that they are doing this, they like
Yes.
that you don't see yourself
Yes.
and all of your bigness and all of your greatness,
Oh
because
my
that means
goodness.
that they get to stay comfortable in how they operate.
How they operate.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Lisa Nichols said, oh, and I had to screenshot this. You are the first example of what loving you looks like.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh.
You are the very first example. And it's unfortunate that because we don't take the time to know how to love ourselves and lead ourselves like we love ourselves. We
Yes.
gotta, that was good
Oh,
for me. We
yes.
don't know how to love, we don't know how to lead ourselves like we love ourselves. because we don't even see who we really are. We don't see the greatnesses
We don't
in
see
us.
the greatness. And you know, one of the reasons why we don't get to see how great we are, we do not take time to give ourselves credit for things
Yes,
we
that
deserve.
we have done. Yes.
We do not take, you know what? I get so much resistance from people to the idea of celebrating self.
Mm,
So much resistance. It's
yeah.
like they think that you're taking something from God by putting,
Isn't that interesting? So
yeah,
interesting.
yeah, afraid to even celebrate your own self.
Yeah.
How much do
Yeah.
you love yourself then? So
Yeah.
yeah, all of that requires courage, man. And
All of that requires courage. So I say that to say that that's the work that I do. I work with women to help them go from where they are to where they desire to be. That takes courage because it means becoming untethered from your comfort zone. And so the ways that we do that is through shifting your self image,
yeah,
shifting your self leadership, and then
yeah.
shifting your self belief.
Oh my goodness. This is amazing. I
Yeah.
cannot wait to come to your event because I know it's going to be life changing.
Life
Oh,
changing.
I'm happy for the women. I am happy for the women who get to experience you.
Yes.
And I'm thankful to you for using your gift to help us. And I thank you so much for honoring the Big Up Yourself show today. You have events, right? And you have
Yeah.
one coming up on the 7th. And I can't wait. I'm going to be there.
I
Um,
love it.
Wait. Now, I got a little recap of what happened in your last event that you had
Yeah.
held at the Kendra Scott store. And
Yeah.
then some of the activities and things that you guys did, I'm like, oh my gosh, I should have been there. I should have been there. I need to be part of this. So I'm going to be there on the 7th.
Yes.
And you guys, if you are in the Dallas area, come and check out Courage Over Comfort with Shannon Muruli. Where is it going to be, Shannon?
It is going to be at the beautiful Lux Gallery House. It's going to be near the beautiful, I call it downtown. It's not really downtown Dallas, but it has a downtown feel where you can look over the North Dallas, scenery, the buildings, the night lights. It's going to be across from the Galleria Mall. And so it's going to be sort of at the rooftop. So at night, it's going to be
Ah, that's going to be
splendid. It's
beautiful.
going to be beautiful, but let alone what's going to be even more beautiful, in my opinion, is the breakthroughs that I'm hoping that will happen for the women who show up. When I tell you we have 5 top tier
I
speakers,
wanted you to tell me about the speakers. Woo! Give
top
me the
tier,
speaker.
top tier in their profession. And this is the thing, even though they're top tier in their profession, the reason why I selected these women is because of their courage over comfort stories. I believe that their stories and what they had to have the courage to do, how they had to have the courage to sell themselves on themselves so that they can make the moves that they've made despite the things that they've experienced. I mean, it's like almost amazing to see the women that they've become despite the things that they've overcome. You know what I mean?
Yes,
So I'm
yes.
excited about them and then the exercises that you will partake in and just
Oh, I'm
the
looking forward to
networking.
the exercises and the networking.
The
Yes.
networking is going to be second to none. I'm a big networker. If you all get to follow me on social media, you'll see
Speaking
me.
of social media, let's show them where to follow you.
Yes, that's where to follow me on IG and on Facebook and on Threads. But I'm
Oh,
more, but I'm more active on Instagram and Facebook under at Shannon Muruli.
at Shannon Muruli.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Okay, one more thing. What
Yes.
is that thing you want to big up yourself for in this moment?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I know that there are some more things that I am going to embrace, but right now I feel so untethered to my comfort zone. I feel so unbound. I feel free. I feel like any thought that comes to try to limit me,
Yes,
it doesn't stand a chance. It just
does not
doesn't stand a
stand a
chance.
chance.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
Have a drink of
No.
that.
Does not stand a chance. And this year isn't even over. I've done some of the things that for years I've wanted to do. Like, I mean, this may not be a big thing for some people, but going to New York Fashion Week in February by myself and
Yes,
showing up again in all of my greatness, so much so people were like rolling out the red carpet just based on my presence, my energy.
oh,
And it just took so much work to like see her, to see the her that I am
yes.
now.
Oh my goodness. I was just thinking just before you came on about celebrating Winsome and celebrating her. You know,
Yeah,
so I hear you. I hear you. And I love the part when you talk about um celebrating your greatness. I
yes,
love that part,
yes.
your greatness,
We
because
have to.
we are.
We
We
have it.
are great. And we just have to recognize that and accept it and walk in it. Oh my gosh, I love it. Shannon Muruli, we have been fed, we have been schooled. Shannon, every word you speak is life to me. I
Thank
want
you.
people, I want people to get a piece of you. I want people to hear you and get to know you, your brilliance and your eloquence and your passion for for leading people to courage. It's palpable.
Yeah.
It's palpable. And I salute you. I salute you, right, for answering your calling to be a courage leader.
Thank you so much.
And I look forward to what's more in store for you. And I thank you. I thank you. It's only just begun for you. And thank you. I thank you for honoring my show with your presence. All right. Thank you so much for joining me. And thank you guys for joining us today on the Big Up Yourself show. Follow Shannon at IG at Shannon Muruli. And see you next time on the Big Up Yourself show. Big up yourself.
Bye, everyone.
Amen.